Previously, we looked at what Namibia intends to do with its renewable energy. But this time, let's go on a journey to see how we can manage our wastewater and our solids.
As we know, Namibia has adopted new nationally determined contributions. Our NDC has 4 pillars. Today we'll learn what Namibia is doing and intends to do with the waste sector. We will also focus with what we do with one of Namibia's most precious commodities, which is water.
If irregularities in rainfall could lead to droughts, for example, could lead to water scarcity, for example, I mean, that's actually compromising our food security and our overall livelihood.
Water is life, as we all know. And Namibia being a dry country, we need water not only for human consumption, but also for crop production, which are the factors that are needed for the contributing to the economy of the country.
We know that Namibia is a semi-arid country. Some years we receive very good rain while others we struggle.
The most affected people are actually people in the rural areas. They don't really have access to a lot of facilities or infrastructure or technology.
But how to manage those precious commodities? Let us start our tour today in Okahanja with NamWater.
We know that we live in a semi-arid country, so that means that we don't get that much rainfall. If you look at the south, we hardly get enough rainfall. So with climate change, it tends to change the climate from area to area. So currently, we are happy with the rain that we received this year, but there were years where we have received very minimal rain. So what we do, we transfer water from Swakopmund and also from Omatako. We bring it to Vonbach, and then the water we treat here is from the Vonbach Dam. So this is a sedimentation unit. This we call it the Clary Flocculator. So what happens is the water is introduced to the middle of that chamber, and then it is slowly agitated just to make sure that the particles bond nicely together. When I told you about the negative and the positive charge, so that's where we make sure that they bond nicely together, form bigger flocks that will then be able to sit on the outside of this bigger sedimentation unit. So it's got 2 chambers. So this plant is quite large. It has a capacity of 6,500 cubic meters per hour.
Wow.
But currently, we're only treating 3,500 cubic meters per hour.
But why is that?
That's due to the demand. So we haven't had that high demand yet, but the moment that high demand is reached, then we are able to supply. Okay, here's our control room, and the most important station that we look at is the Windhoek terminal reservoirs, where we look at how much water is in there. If there's too little water, we pump more. If it's too much, then we pump less. And then we also look at our residual chlorine here and also our turbidity, which is how clear your water is. Because the first thing a person will do when they take water, they'll look, is it clear or is it not? And the moment it's not clear, then it's a problem. So these are the parameters that we look at. As I said, your turbidity, which is the NTU. Then we look at our free chlorine, and we've got our iron and the manganese, and also ammonia. So from here, we can then drink the water. It's safe to drink. Yes.
Really delicious.
Let's see how this water goes from this and all the way down into the drain. Into this clean drinking water. So Ms. Justina, can you please show us where you took us on this map?
Okay, so you came in, this is Ochomisa Road, and Gamam's Water Care Works is just off Ochomisa Road. So this is the road to the plant.
Yes.
This is the 2 main collectors or the 2 main sewer pipes that brings the water to the plant. So you come into the plant, then here is your inlet works or the head of works. Yeah, this whole part is a preliminary or primary treatment part of the whole process.
Yes.
So we came in this way through the head of works where your screening is done, and then all the way for your coarse material, for removal of your coarse material, and then also for removal of your grit, mainly your sand, your aggregates, and all the small materials. And then this part is your primary settling or primary sedimentation to cater for your easily settleable material. Yes, 8 of them. And then here, around here, this concludes the primary treatment. And around here, this is where the water is split into 2 trains.
Yes.
The train that is the wastewater stream of our plant, and the train that feeds the reclamation plant. So then from there, we came to the secondary treatment, which is the main treatment of the plant. It's called the activated sludge process. And then from there, you start here, the inflow is here, and then the water goes into the system and out here. And then to your next treatment, which is called your secondary sedimentation or secondary settling. So through your splitter box to your 4 systems for your final separation of your solids and your liquid. So your liquid or the cleaner water goes through and is collected into a central collection pipe. Yes, into your maturation pond for your tertiary treatment, for your removal of your disease-causing pathogens. So the water then comes here to the first pond. There are 8 ponds in total. So this is where we were standing. So this is the first pond, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, and the 8th. At the end of the 8th one here, the water is collected into a pipe, which then gravitates the water to the reclamation plant for further treatment.
Basically, this is our whole process from the raw water blend to the inlet works. We have the pre-ozonation. As you can see here, we actually don't have HCl anymore. We have potassium permanganate, but originally it was HCl, which we dose for pH correction. And then we dose ferrichloride, which is a coagulant, which causes flocculation to happen here. And then the DAF, dissolved air flotation, where we see small particles, dissolved solids actually removed, and the flocks are removed here. And then we have the caustic, which is for pH correction, and the potassium permanganate, which removes iron and manganese in the water after the DAF. Then the rapid gravity sand filtration process. It's called rapid gravity because you have slow sand filtration, which takes days, and then this one just takes a matter of minutes. So it's rapid. It's quite fast. Then we have the ozonation step. We have 3 chambers in which we dose different doses of ozone to remove contaminants, because we try to achieve a residual at the end of the whole process, and that residual needs to be maintained. And then we dose H2O2 to remove the ozone from the water after this step. And then you have the biologically activated carbon filters, which is the BACs, which have little bugs, which eat up the pathogens in the water, which have been deactivated by the ozone. And then after that, we just have a quality step, which is the granular activated carbon. And then we are here at the ultrafiltration, membrane filtration process, which is the final stage to remove anything, everything, like really there's nothing. It's just to make sure that the water is absolutely certifiably clean. We put it through our ultrafiltration membranes. And then we have disinfection and stabilization. So disinfection, we disinfect like Nam water disinfects, like any other water plant disinfects, with chlorine. And that is just to keep a chlorine residual in the water so that when it reaches your home, it's still certifiably clean. Because what can happen, you can have cracks in pipes, anything that might contaminate it in the distribution system. So this is just to ensure that the water is still going to be clean when you open the tap.
So water management is complex. For Windhoek, for example, we use water from Vonbach Dam that is purified by Nam water and sent to Windhoek. The used water is not all wasted though, and a big part is recycled, being purified and brought back into the system. Water is a precious commodity we all need to use wisely.
Water management in Windhoek is complex. Other towns have simpler systems and are also trying to reuse our water.
When the town is growing, a lot of sewage water, there will be no way we can discharge that water. The only reason is only to treat it. When we treat it, according to the Minister of Environment, we are given licenses to dispose of that water for two reasons, for environmental reasons and for health reasons. Because when the water comes, meet with the fresh water, so this mixed silica suspended, it will be kept in suspension so that the bacteria should not go down. The reason why we are doing so, if the bacteria goes down, you know, it settles. When it settles, those bacteria, they will be pressed into sludge, so they will not be able to come on top. Because if you check there, that water is just running into the pipe, and that pipe is under. This thing is deep. It's plus minus 12 meters deep. As you can see the clarity of water, you see, this is how clean this water can be. So that's why we keep those rotating, the aerators, we keep them rotating. Yes, then from there, the water have to pass into the sump. From the sump, it goes into the clarifier. The heavy sludge settles, clear water comes on top, and then it falls into the V-notch. From the V-notch, it goes into a contact chamber. Why is it going into the contact chamber? In the contact chamber, the dosing point, where now that treated water, that is very clean now, it meets with chlorine just to completely kill the bacteria, so that the water that we discharge into the environment, it is without the bacteria. The animals, when they drink that water, should not have problems. If it's too much, the water contains too much chlorine, you pour it in the grass, it will burn completely.
The whole idea for the initiative for Eco Go Green Namibia, there's only two key words. Is to end hunger and to create jobs. This water is actually coming from the sewage. As you can see this, it generates from the fertilizers, as you can see.
The benefit of the dry sludge, me and you and the community will use it to as manure, is the one you can see again, those big heaps.
And the sewage created those fertilizers. As you can see there, there's a black on top of the fan. We use those fertilizers to make use of our project. As you can see, we use sewage water plus the fertilizers. What we did is under this here, there's some seeds. Yeah, so tomatoes, cabbage.
Many institutions are trying their best to save water and have their own systems to purify wastewater. While this is an investment, it's also a lesson we should all learn from. So let's go see what some of them are doing.
We've got a wastewater pond system, and then we've got a plant called the trickling filter.
Yes.
From that trickling filter, the water basically trickles down, and there's bacteria growing on plastic media. And they remove the organic constituents, and the water gets filtered through a sand and a carbon filter, and then it goes through a reverse osmosis, and then you can drink the water again, which is very, very good for arid country like Namibia.
I brought you to this place because of any horticultural business like we have, we need water, all right? So I'm just trying to explain to you how our whole system works. So the big pipe is coming from the Swakopmund Dam, all right? There's a big pipe coming from there, and it's coming to this area here. So the water is, we put it in the raw water dam, and then from that dam you see this machine. This machine is a reverse osmosis plant. So this machine cleans up our water because the plants need clean water, and we add, because we use hydroponic system,
we add food to the water, and then that's why it's very important for the water to be clean. All right, that's why we use this machine. Now this machine uses light to disinfect the water. Yeah. So it's pumped through, there's light tubes inside here. So the water is being pumped through, and the light kills all the germs and all the pathogens that's inside the water that may occur. And when it's leaving there, it's being pumped in the next dam. Those water is now ready to use again, and also still contains some food. So we save 25% on our water with this system.
This excess wastewater we collected. We have our tanks. We collected there. They run up from that one is the collective tank. That come from the lodge. All the water, the sewage water came from the lodge. That one is the collective tank. So all the wastes, the toilet papers and everything, we collected here. We put it there. Once it gets dry, we put it in the drum. And once we put it in the drum, we burn it. Filter. It's full of sun. It's where your water clean also. We use it again on the grass, and then we use it again in the tank, where arrow was again.
All the water that we waste, not necessarily waste, that we use for cleaning our processes, like the settlers, where we dislodge the water, the filters where we backwash, that water is collected into evaporation ponds. But although we call them evaporation ponds, we actually just settle the water settle the sludge in the ponds, and then the overflow is brought back again into the plant. So that way we are saving water. We are recycling the water.
Namibia is blessed with a long coastline. Did you know that we have the technology to use seawater? Desalination is a complex process, but through this process, we are able to process water that is safe for human consumption.
Basically, we start with the seawater that's out in the ocean. We have to get it to the plant. We have two pipes that go out into the ocean for the purpose of getting the water to the beach. From there, we have pumps that then pump the water to the plant, which is on the side of the road. What's next is then we have to clean the water. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that's floating in the water, that's suspended. We call them suspended solids. So we have to get rid of these suspended solids. Next, we come to the part we call ultrafiltration. Ultrafiltration, as the name says, it's a filtering process, but to a much smaller extent than the screens. Here we have pores that are 0.02 micron. That is small enough to remove bacteria and viruses from the seawater. The interesting thing about ultrafiltration is that it takes place in a cylindrical vessel, and inside these cylindrical vessels you have membranes, ultrafiltration membranes. This is an example of an ultrafiltration membrane if you cut it open. It's about 1 meter, 1.2 meters in length, and it lies horizontally inside your pressure vessel. Now you've got the seawater that's super clean. So all the suspended solids that we were speaking about, they are removed. But obviously the salt, because it's dissolved, there's a special process that we use to remove the salts, and it's called reverse osmosis. Reverse osmosis, you pressurize the concentrated solution and you force it through the membrane, and on the one side of the membrane the solution becomes more concentrated, whereas on the other side of this membrane you have then what we call permeate, where this process removes 98% of the salts that's in seawater. In order for us to force that concentrated or the seawater through the membrane, we have to pressurize it to a pressure of 70 bar. 70 bar pressure, if you put it in practical terms, a normal car tire is about 2 bar. So that is a very high pressure. Now you've got this splendid permeate. no salts in the water. But because it's now, we say it's hungry for salt, you can put it that way. So it will dissolve anything that it comes into contact with. So in order to protect our pipeline, we have to remineralize the water. We dissolve calcium carbonate in the water, and then that gives back some of the minerals to the water. But we control that process by looking at the pH of the water, and the water, when it leaves our site, it's at a pH of around 8.9. And then obviously, as it reacts with oxygen through the pipeline, the pH drops to about 8.2, 8.3 when it reaches our customer.
So water we use is pumped from the Quisab River, just the river behind here. It's a dry, ephemeral river, but the water is so salty, it's not nearly fit for human consumption. So we pump it from the borehole up through this reverse osmosis container here, and it removes out all the salt, and it's then pumped up into the tower up there, and then it flows to all the taps via gravity. So it becomes then drinkable that way.
Here we have our solar desalination plant, because we have the ocean as a vast resource that we can use, right? As we all know, Namibia is a dry country, so we need water, don't we? So then the University of Namibia, together with the University of Turku in Finland, commissioned the pilot desalination plant, where we're trying to desalinate seawater to turn it into fresh water, because we know we don't have fresh water in Namibia, right? Plant, and we use reverse osmosis technology to create or to transform seawater to fresh water, and this is basically what is happening here.
So this pump pumps the water into these membranes. There are membranes that are inside, where the water molecules are actually forced through a membrane that only allows the water molecule itself, the H2O, to pass through, whilst stopping all the other salts that make the seawater salty. And after that, we then grade our fresh water, which is then pumped through that whole system and goes to the tank, and also part of it actually comes out through a tap there.
So welcome to our bottling unit. What we do here, like I mentioned, at the desalination, we don't do any treatment. We don't. We simply take the water as it comes, right?
Yes.
But here, because we're gonna give it to, say, store it longer, we need to apply some form of treatment. So what we apply here is a process called ozonation.
Ozonation.
Yes, so we have an ozonator here, where we basically pump some ozone into our water. So ozone is important for killing bacteria, pathogens, and so forth. And you can
I can drink it.
You can have it, and
let's see how clean it really is.
Yeah.
Dun dun dun.
So how does it taste?
It tastes like clean water. Yes, it's clean, guys.
At Orange River Mines, we use water from the Orange River. And because we are using fresh water, it's very important for us, firstly, to use our water very, very resourcefully and to make sure that we don't waste water. We use water basically to wash our material and also to help the material to move through the plant, and then we dispose of it in a slime stem. We call it a slime stem, but it's really just a mixture of fines and water. So a best word would actually be to say it's a fines disposal dam. So it's water mixed with fine sand. And what we do there is we allow the sand to settle, and then when the water is on the top, we pump that water back to the plant and we reuse it.
So if we try to recap, water is a scarce resource in Namibia. As we know, it can be recycled. Preserving our water and making the best use of it is our global responsibility.
So we need to put in laws or adaptation and mitigation measures of how we can consolidate efforts, regional efforts, local efforts, national efforts of how to come about with solutions.
Another option as a country is that we want to secure our water. We are going to do this through desalination of our seawater, water banking, as well as harvesting of our rainwater.
The dam has a catchment area of about 45,000 square kilometers. Which is all the way downstream from Hardap. So it's actually rainwater that is collected between Hardap and Nekatar Dam.
And once we have enough water, we can do agriculture. Once we have agriculture, we can secure the food sources of our country, as well as create jobs for the Namibian people at large.
For crops, it does not need to go through any treatment process. It's just supplies as it is because it's already fresh water. It's just normal rainwater.
In terms of the system, we've already made the system so closed that we've minimized the water as much as we can. We do still monitor on a monthly basis and make sure that we hit those targets, that we make sure that our target, which is 70%, we always overshoot the target in terms of reusing our water. And it's actually one of the most important things at Orange River Mine.
Save water, guys. Even if you're at home, try and save as much water as you can.
Us as a university, we want to show that it is possible. There are some answers to our water scarcity views in the country.
So it is important for the country to have sufficient water supply or water storage infrastructures.
You know, we have a whole stretch, 1,500 kilometers of the Atlantic. And then we have these microorganisms like microalgae that are actually carbon sinks. So we are actually drawing more CO2 than anything else. So I think really just to look at nature and learn from nature and design systems.
Managing water in the Namibian climate is extremely important. It can only be done if we all work together.
We can definitely all contribute by monitoring how much water we use and reduce waste.
We must be careful of what we put in our water drains. We should try not to block the flow of water.
Namibia has invested a lot in new technologies, in particular to purify water or desalinate our water from the coast.
But climate change affects it all. What if we start to get less rain? We need to start investing in innovations to adapt and mitigate such risk. Water is key to human development, and if we want Namibia to flourish in the next 10 years, we must continue working together towards preserving our water.
Water management is not something only for city and town councils to take care of. We are the key to success. Let us learn and look after our water.
So will you be more conscious about where our water comes from and where it goes after you've used it? We hope so. And on that note,
from me, Simon.
From me to Sunny, it's goodbye.